Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast. Did you miss us? I missed us. We've been off an extra week due to scheduling issues. But so thanks for your patience. But we're back as promised or threatened, depending on your point of view. I'm Charles Skaggs, that guy. She's Xan Sprouse. And,
hi, everybody.
And that's Xan with the X, not the Z.
Right. The female version, the one that does not just turn into a bucket of water.
Exactly. She's X for extreme or excellent.
X is for xylophone because X is always for xylophone.
Or X-ray.
True. Have you ever read Uncle Shelby's ABZ book by Shel Silverstein?
Probably back in the day, yeah.
Yeah, that's where that comes from. X is for xylophone because X is always for xylophone. As, of course, has always been my favorite letter in that book. So,
also known as the Sue Grafton novel she wouldn't write.
Was there not an X?
I can't remember if there was an X or not. I know there wasn't a Z because she died.
Right, she did pass away just recently, but I thought there was an X. I thought there was X.
Maybe there was an X. I could be wrong. I don't follow the series.
Just X, like X marks the spot.
Oh, maybe. That might be it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I stand corrected. I thought that was it. But okay. You're probably right. It's not. I'm not. I can't claim to be a Sue Grafton expert by any means because I've never read any of the books.
Hey, if she could do Q is for quarry, I mean, there's something for X. There's always something for X.
Exactly. All right. So, what are we going to talk about this week? Well, as promised, we're going to talk about a limited event series, the Season 3 Blu-ray set, which was released way back in December 5th of last year. We're finally getting around to it because we're playing catch-up, but...
it's only January.
It's only January. Yeah, we're not too bad. We're only a month off on this one. So this is, obviously by Paramount, CBS / Showtime. And this was an 8-disc set, which was fantastic. For considering there's only 16 episodes, to get like to get an 8-disc set is pretty awesome. And
it's a lot of extra features.
A lot of extra, especially that 8th disc, the golden disc, the shiny golden disc.
That 8th disc is mostly.
Did you finish it all? Did you get through the?
I did,
because I got through most of it. I couldn't finish it all, but I got most of it.
It's mostly that behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, it is. Lots of filming of various like key moments in the series, and then a lot of Lynch behind the camera doing his thing, and we'll get into that.
It's hypnotic.
It is because I don't think we've ever gotten this kind of like really in-depth analysis of David Lynch as an auteur.
Not anything that I've seen like this, and the final disc is broken up like it is a artsy documentary about David Lynch's process. Yeah. So in between the segments of, and when I say segments, I mean long periods of time, long stretches of time at a time of him actually working and you seeing the filming of the show. There's narration by the person who put this together.
Yes, this I don't know if I'm guessing it's probably the filmmaker.
And I can't think of
Jason S.
Yes, Jason S.
But apparently Jason S. has like a German accent, unless he's just completely affecting his voice to make it sound German. But
it is possible that
I am a German filmmaker.
It is possible that everybody making documentaries these days is doing so because of Werner Herzog.
Oh, that could be.
Who is a fantastic documentary filmmaker and has a very unique voice. But yeah, it's hypnotic to watch that.
Yeah, I kept waiting for something like, and now next on Sprockers, this is when we dance.
The story has become tiresome.
My name is Dieter.
I'm as happy as a little girl.
Yeah, yes. And now I'm thinking of Kyle MacLachlan in that Sprockets sketch when he hosted Saturday Night Live.
You know him best as the Vecchi neighbor on the sitcom Who Are You to Accuse Me?
Nice. I can't believe you remember that. That's fantastic. I'm gonna mark one up for Xan there. That is some seriously impressive obscure trivia.
That is some seriously impressive Kyle MacLachlan love, let me tell you right
Well,
there.
love slash obsession, whatever,
But, but
whatever you want to
whatever
call
you
it,
want to call it. But, you know,
fanatical obsession, whatever you want to call it.
there's a world between people in, 100 feet that you're required to stay away from them.
It's nothing a restraining order won't solve.
It's nothing a restraining order won't solve. But I will say one thing about this extra footage.
Yes.
Don't fall asleep to it, because then you'll have weird David Lynch dreams.
Pretty much.
Yeah, take my advice from
I did.
my experience.
I totally feel you, because I was like in my recliner chair, all nice and comfy. It was late because Lori had gone to bed because she's not going to want to watch this stuff. So I'm watching this alone in the dark, and you nod off a little bit, and you can have some seriously messed up dreams.
Now it's dark.
But who's the dreamer?
Is it future?
Is it
past? Or is it
past? Is it future or is it past? Yes, exactly. You start dreaming all this stuff, and you're dreaming of like Philip Jeffries in a tea kettle and stuff like that. So yeah, it's pretty interesting, to say the least. All right, so I'm not sure how do you want to break down this review? Because do you want to go just by disc? Or do you
we can certainly go disc by disc.
I didn't know if you had something in mind how you want to do this, but we can do disc by disc.
Disc by disc is a good way of breaking it up.
Yeah,
I'm just trying.
Yeah, obviously I'm just trying to organize my thoughts here, because there's just so much to involved in this, and
there's about 4 or 5 discs that are just the show. That don't have any.
Yeah, thankfully it was like, I think it's like what, disc 3 through, what is it, 7? Yeah. No, disc 3. Yeah, disc through disc 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so 4 discs that are just 3 episodes each. All right, so the first disc, where we have Black Lodge Billowing Red Curtains on the menu. This has parts 1 and 2. And also has the combined version of 1 and 2 that you and I watched together when we watched the premiere. And that's kind of that's pretty much how I prefer to.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I prefer to watch it. Those first 2 parts.
And that's right. The first 2 parts were shown together, and the second 2 parts were shown together. So by the time we got to episode 5, I was like, what, just an hour? What? No. Just 1 hour a week? What is this, 1990?
Yeah, exactly. So I was glad they did 2 parts back to back, but I think I just, having watched the first part separately, I think it works better as a combined 2-parter. Maybe it's just me.
I think it does. I think it feels more like a movie, and they mention this in one of the little break, the little 10-minute documentaries that are on this disc. There's the 3-part documentary that it's, when you're watching a David Lynch television, you're not watching a TV show, you're watching a movie for television, a movie that is being shown on television. And we've discussed before that Twin Peaks changed the way we see television, changed the way we made television, changed the way the television viewing audience expects their television to be. And so when you get something like this, where you have 2 hours, where it is the length of a feature film, that it makes more sense. It feels correct when you see it that way.
Yeah, I totally agree. So we also got the promos on this disc, which was the very first, the first glimpses we had. Obviously the teasing, because they're obviously building up to it, the promotional stuff, and so we had the first one we got was just Angelo Badalamenti playing Laura's theme, on
Which I never saw. Did you see that one?
I did. Yeah, I did. I saw that one. Um, which is, it's called Piano.
On TV?
I don't know if I saw it on
Right.
TV. I saw it.
Did you see it on television?
I think I saw it on the internet. Like, because like I was
Because
following some websites and then I was just like, they came out with a promo. And I think I saw it on YouTube or something.
I was avoiding
Yeah.
anything on the internet that I could. So I had never actually seen that one. So that was actually very cool.
I'm trying to think what else I was watching on Showtime at the time. Because I think Penny Dreadful was over. So I probably wasn't watching that.
Okay.
But I was probably watching something else. And maybe it's just because they were doing, maybe it was good. Yeah, it was during the, when they were rerunning Twin Peaks, the original series episodes on Showtime.
Okay. That makes sense.
That's when I saw it. And then, then we got the probably the very eye-catching, or at least, like that for their first real, like, oh, it's coming moment with David Lynch eating a donut, which is just.
I love David Lynch's donut.
And, I respect because he's eating a glazed donut, my preference. So keeping it old school. So no sprinkles, no sprinkles. Just a good tasty
Can't go
glaze.
wrong with a classic.
That's a classic.
Chris came in as I was watching those and he said, this should have had no music, no sound, nothing, just him eating the donuts.
Well, you can always turn the sound down if you want to, but yeah. Yeah, that would just
right.
just be really,
I like the music.
Yeah, have it like just David Lynch eating a donut, but yeah, no credits or anything, nothing to let you know what this is about. Just keep it completely vague. And then everybody go, what why is David Lynch eating a donut? Yeah. To go really
because I think we've said before that although this series, you need to know a couple of things
right
about Twin Peaks to get into this series, but you didn't have to watch the original series to like this.
Right.
It helped, but you didn't have to. But at the same time, I can't imagine a lot of people not having been going into this cold,
right.
Especially since Twin Peaks is available on Netflix and it's so easy to catch up with. So when you see David Lynch in a black suit, that could be anything.
Yes.
When you see David Lynch with hearing aids, this is going to be Twin Peaks.
Right.
And hearing aids in a donut, that's kind of all you need to see. That would be like the Seinfeld in a box of cereal or something, just something that is,
it's iconic.
So right. So entwined with that character or that realm of that show.
Right.
So I thought that was perfect. I thought that was hilarious. And the longer it went on, the funnier it was to me.
And it was and that's all it was. It was just David Lynch eating a donut. No big deal. But it was enough to make everybody go like, Twin Peaks. And that was just great. Yeah. So that was great.
And it told us,
yes.
Gordon Cole was coming back, because we could have assumed a lot of things about who was coming back, but we didn't know anything. Now we knew Gordon Cole was going to be there.
That's true. We did have confirmation because, for all we knew, it would just be Lynch behind the camera. But obviously, we wanted to see Gordon back, and thankfully we got him. And we actually got a lot of him, more than we did, I think, in the original series. Next trailer we got was called Woods, which is where we got our first new footage of the new series.
Yes.
And that was a big moment. That was a cool trailer. Next one after that was Places, which were essentially location stills, but it was shot so it kind of, you got the vibe that somebody was, like, someone with a camera was taking pictures, like all secret and mysterious.
Mm-hmm.
Like watching in the bushes.
That someone was cased.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was cool. I like that. Next one we got was People, where we got to see the original cast members.
I loved this one because again, you had an idea of who you were going to see, and that, I know for most of us, was the biggest question that we had, was not just what is this going to be about, but who's coming back?
Right.
Where is everybody? Who's okay? Who's still around? And so to get that was, I remember watching that trailer going, oh, look, oh my God. Oh,
yes.
just being so excited to see
like you see Andy for the first
screen.
time again, and you're just like, it's Andy. So yeah,
Andy and Lucy and Big Ed, and
right.
So excited.
Yeah, it was great. And then you were kind of disappointed. You're like, okay, but what about everybody else? You had to like, okay, who else? Is that it? Is that all we're getting? Right.
Right.
And then
we had some questions answered, but then we had some questions raised.
But of course,
where's so and so, or where's this person? Oh my! Yep. Whoa! So,
and of course, it
made me really excited.
Right, which is great, a great sign for a teaser trailer, because obviously it gets people talking, which is what you want. You're trying to build that buzz.
Yes,
it's good marketing. Next trailer we got was
the point of the teaser.
Exactly. Yep. Next one we got was Albert, which is where we've got more of the original cast, but we got our first glimpse at some of the new cast members, like Daria and Sam, and so yeah.
Yes.
And people that probably ended up getting killed off rather quickly, but for the most part.
That was the interesting thing about these trailers that started showing us clips from the first couple of episodes.
Right.
Because I remember watching that thinking, oh, who are these people going to be? What are they going to do? What's going to happen with them? And they are not going to last very long. He didn't show us anybody that lasted. So as much as we talked about who they were or what they were going to do, it didn't matter. They were fun.
Yeah, exactly. We thought, these are going to be like major new characters, and then they're just like, well, you're in a couple episodes, or boom, that's it.
Right.
And by this time, we'd seen enough of the teasers that we're just like, what is this show going to be about? What's going on? You were just dying for information at this point. At least I was.
Well, and that's what we knew. It wasn't just a continuation of everything that we already knew. We knew there was going to be more to the story than just where are they now. That's when we realized, and we thought, oh, this is going to be good. This is going to be good.
And then the last one was called In Cinema, which is essentially just a longer teaser with some new footage. Now, this presumably was made for the promotional purposes in movie theaters. But I don't think I saw this one in a movie theater. Did you?
I did not see this one in a movie theater. I
don't remember seeing
it. No, I don't remember seeing it, and I don't... Maybe this says something about the movies I go to, that I don't go to enough art houses.
Right.
That, usually when I see a trailer for a TV show, it's a TV show I'm probably not going to watch. So,
yeah, maybe it's one of those.
This would have been nice to see. So it made me realize I need to go see some weirder movies.
Yeah, this maybe it was like here in Columbus. Maybe it was like the Gateway Film Crowd, something a little more artsy.
Probably that's probably exactly what it would have been. Right, exactly.
Yep. A little inside baseball for you, for anyone that doesn't know anything about Columbus, but that's probably it. All right, the second part.
Theater here at the Gateway Film Center, which is amazing.
Yep, exactly. So then, also on this first disc, we got Twin Peaks: The Phenomenon documentary, and this is apparently like a three-part documentary of about roughly 5 minutes each. And
these are those things that you see on cable where your movie ends at, say, 9:27,
right?
But your next movie doesn't start until 9:35.
Yeah, this fills
is
in
that kind of thing
little
that they
time slots. Yes, those little time slot gaps.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So we got part one, which was called Creation, and this had like Gary Levine, the Showtime president of programming, who apparently was the guy who signed off on bringing Twin Peaks back. Apparently, he was also a vice president at ABC during 1988 through 1992. Well, hey, that was just when Twin Peaks was originally on the air on ABC. So I wonder if he's the guy
I think
that probably was like, oh, Twin Peaks was awesome. Let's bring that back. I remember that when that was at ABC, and we should do this here at Showtime.
Right. And I thought that was interesting that he told the story of having been there when David Lynch and Mark Frost pitched the original Twin Peaks, and everybody was really excited about it. So
Right.
I thought that was cool. That there are so many people from the inception of Twin Peaks back in the '80s that were still around, and including some of the executives. That was interesting to me.
Yeah, it can't be a coincidence that he was over at ABC at the time the original series was on, and yeah, I have to think.
No, yeah, I think that has to be.
Yeah,
that has to be
and maybe
a
or maybe this is
factor.
or maybe why Lynch brought it to Showtime as opposed to say HBO or somewhere else.
Or maybe why Lynch got pissed off. We don't know.
This is true. Could be some old grudges, maybe. Yeah, I'm sure the truth is out there somewhere. Oh wait, that's a different podcast. That's got to be an X-Files podcast.
Different show.
Different show. So we also saw like John Thorne, the guy behind the Wrapped in Plastic fanzine back in the day, and we got Damon Lindelof from Lost, who, as we find out later during the Twin Peaks panel at San Diego Comic-Con, is apparently a huge Twin Peaks nerd. And
loves himself. Oh,
yeah, well, there's that too, but yeah.
Not a big fan of the Lindelof.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, that's okay. I don't expect you to be. And I'm still kind of, shakes fist at Lost Season 6. But that's just me.
This isn't even a Lost thing, but I just have sometimes an issue with people spending so much of their time trying to tell me what weirdos they are.
Right.
And I feel like he definitely did that at the panel, and we can talk about this.
Yeah,
we
can.
The panel's not about the moderator. The panel is about the people on the panel.
Yeah. So you think he was just like, yeah? There are moments, especially during that panel, where it's like he's trying really hard to bank his geek cred, his geek street cred.
It does that to me.
At least that's the vibe I get. Yeah. We also see some like
I definitely got that. He wanted to talk about himself, himself as a Twin Peaks fan as much as he wanted to talk to the Twin Peaks people.
Right. We also got some 1990 news reports at the time when the show was on, which is kind of cool, archival stuff to see. And I thought
that was interesting that they had film of people watching the reveal as to who killed Laura Palmer.
Right.
Because that was 1990. That wasn't somebody with their phone surreptitiously filming their friend watching the Red Wedding. This is somebody that had to set up a camera.
Right.
For that really had to think about. I thought that was fascinating that people had actually done that, because I know first of all, my family didn't have a video camera. Second of all, I probably wouldn't have thought that would have been anything to videotape.
Right. Yes, because obviously back in the day we had the technology to record stuff on these big bulky VHS cassettes, but yeah, it's just we weren't as like obviously I don't know if the word is self-centered enough, but we weren't into like just documenting every action that we took back then in the 90s that we compared to today.
No, nowhere near as much as we are today. Yeah. And why would you waste blank tape on taping yourself watching Twin Peaks when you could just be taping Twin Peaks?
Exactly. Like you would rather use the cassette to record the episodes rather than actually recording your reaction about the videos. So all you millennials,
expensive kids.
Yep. So all you millennials making on the YouTubes, making the reaction videos. Well, guess what? People were doing it back in the 90s. So, and here's proof.
Evidently.
So you're just, you think you're being all hip and everything, but nope. They were doing that 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And
what was also interesting about this, and
yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I don't think I was paying attention when I was watching this, but do you remember did they actually tell us in this documentary who did kill Laura Palmer? I feel like they didn't even spoil it for this documentary in case you wanted to go back and watch it.
No, I don't think they did. I can't recall that they did.
I don't think they did either.
Which is good because, you know, if
So
you just happen to be like watching
cool.
watching this over at your friend's house and you hadn't seen Twin Peaks and you might want to check it out. Yeah, that's kind of good.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so we also got like, you know, the footage of like showing how popular Twin Peaks was at the time, including, of course, Simpsons tribute episode, which Xan, of course, being the
Shot Mr. Burns episode.
Exactly. So Xan, being the hardcore Simpsons geek, probably really appreciated seeing that footage. I remember that episode. That was a lot of fun. And
that was fantastic. I told you the story before, but when that episode aired, I watched it live.
Yeah.
And you have to say that these days because not everybody watches everything live anymore. But as soon as that happened, I started laughing so hard, and I called my friend Troy.
Yeah.
And he picked up the phone and was laughing. He knew it was me. He knew it was going to be me on the phone. It was great. But yeah, that was a big thing too. Who killed Mr. Burns? It wasn't quite who killed Laura Palmer or who shot Mr. Burns. It was a pretty big deal.
Right. Because remember back in 1990, The Simpsons was really red hot back then. That was one of the It TV shows. And so when Twin Peaks hit, when Twin Peaks actually got a shout out on The Simpsons, that was just like, oh, Twin Peaks definitely made it. Because, that was just like...
That's just geek inception right there for me.
Exactly. We also got to see some Twin Peaks parties from back in the day with everybody with bad hair, and which was kind of fun. And
everybody with their 90s hair.
Yep. And just talking about the show's popularity. So I thought that was a cool first segment. Next segment we got was part 2, Life After Death, which obviously talking about the show after it gets canceled and how it survived in kind of pop culture afterward. So they apparently discussed the ratings.
And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, and I think that does happen to any show where you have an ongoing tense situation.
Yeah. Whether
or not it's who killed Laura Palmer or will they or won't they types of storylines like you'd had with Moonlighting or Northern Exposure, where there's this constant tension between the characters of are they going to get together or are they not, and then when they do, everybody's like, okay, well now what? Do I care? I don't know if I do.
The Sam and Diane, Cheers, Lois and Clark. So yeah.
Right. Yes, exactly. So when you have that sort of thing, it's hard to come back with that because then you start straining believability with, okay, what's the next crazy thing, the next crazy mystery that's going to happen in this tiny little town? So I think they went to the next logical step, which was where all of this crazy stuff was coming from, which was, of course, the Renault family.
Right.
So they had a lot of that. Then I think bringing Wyndham Earle in made sense because we didn't know this at the time, but when you have a Blue Rose task force, there's weird crap that's going to happen with the FBI. And you have this character that everybody loves, who is Cooper, and finding a nemesis for Cooper seemed like the next logical step as well.
Right, essentially, because he was like a Moriarty to Cooper's Sherlock Holmes, essentially.
He was exactly Moriarty to Cooper's Sherlock Holmes, especially if Moriarty had a wife that Sherlock Holmes would have banged. But the audience initially, I think, got so caught up in the Laura story, and we've heard me say a million times how everyone loves Laura,
right,
and that she's such an enchanting character, that once we knew what was up with Laura, then you just had a weird show.
Yeah.
And some people stick around for characters they love a little better than other people can. I know I have watched not the greatest of shows in my lifetime because I like characters.
Yes.
I'm I'm going to talk about certain soap operas that probably should remain nameless because you have like characters.
Right.
But there are people there who are more plot driven, and if the plot is not what you want it to be, then you're not going to stick around. And if you're not in it for characters, then why would you stick around? So the ratings went down, and I said this at the time too, that ABC kind of screwed them when they got moved to Saturdays.
Right.
Because that's fine for me. I was in high school, you know, so if I was going anywhere on a Saturday night, it was probably to another friend's house. It's not like I was going clubbing or out to dinner or anything like that. I had no money.
Right.
But even nerds go out on Saturdays.
Yes.
And I said the exact same thing when On the Air premiered, and On the Air was on Saturday. I said, this is not going to last. Even nerds go out on Saturdays.
Right.
So it got a kiss of death time slot. And of course, remember, it was canceled and then had the letter writing campaign to bring it back. And they brought it back, and it was on Thursdays, I think, when they brought it back. I think when it finally went off the air, it was a Thursday or Friday night, I forget. It was a weeknight. I remember that.
I think it was Fridays. I'm not sure.
Ooh, or was it Mondays? Because the final episode was on a Monday.
Oh, well, maybe it was Monday then.
And
okay.
Yeah, Monday, June 10th.
I mean, we had to look at
Monday, June 10th, 1991.
We had to look into that. I'm not actually certain on that. We got to check into that.
Yeah, that's a question. But anytime something like that jumps around, back in the day before DVRs.
Yes.
Right now, I don't even care. I don't even know when the shows I watch are on. It just, at some point,
you just program the DVR.
I pull up
yeah.
Yeah, I pull up what's recorded and say, okay, well, that apparently was on. Let's watch that tonight. So, but back in the day before DVRs, when shows moved around and you didn't know it, it's not like people were sitting at home every night waiting to see when their favorite show was.
Right.
Is it, it's Wednesday. Let's stay home all night and see if Twin Peaks moved to this week. So when things got moved around, and people were kind of loyal to days, there were, God forbid you put something on one of the few things that ever survived a Thursday night that wasn't on NBC was The Simpsons.
Right. And
so there were time slot wars back when the majority of the U.S. TV watching public had just the 3 channels. Yeah. So,
well, the Simpsons is a good point because with back then you had the Simpsons on Thursdays. It was also at the same time you had Cosby, and in 1990 they also had the Flash TV show. And obviously, being a hardcore Flash fan, I was all about that because the Flash is getting killed the ratings because the CBS, in their infinite stupidity, put it on opposite Cosby and The Simpsons. And eventually, they bumped it to 8:30. They bumped it to 8:30 to get away from The Simpsons a little bit and Cosby. But by then, it was too late. That the audience hadn't really caught on.
Right, the damage was done.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because there had been, I'm sure we've all heard the term must-see TV,
right? Which
was coined in the 90s. It started with. It's hard to believe now that pretty much everybody in the country stopped what they were doing to watch Bill Cosby.
Yes. Awkward.
Back when
it was okay to watch Bill Cosby and not feel completely skeevy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But when you think about all of NBC's great comedies, like, The Cosby Show or Cheers or Friends or Seinfeld, those even some of their great dramas like ER, those were Thursday nights.
Right.
That was a Thursday thing.
Yeah.
So putting a TV show.
NBC traditionally owned Thursdays because that's when you had like Cheers and A Different World, and so. Eventually, then Friends was on eventually on Thursday nights, I believe. So
yes,
yeah.
In the mid to late 90s, Friends and ER were on Thursdays.
Right.
So, but that was it. Yeah, that was it. I think the only other still talked about 80s comedy from NBC that wasn't on Thursdays was Golden Girls, and that was on Saturdays.
Right.
And again, because we're sort of talking about a non-party going demographic that is doing that. But The Simpsons is able to survive because it's a very different audience than The Cosby Show. And it was a younger, more alternative audience that was watching that might have grown up on The Cosby Show because everybody grew up on The Cosby Show, but wasn't necessarily going to stick with that because by the 90s, The Cosby Show had the same problem that every other sitcom had, and they tried the same stupid remedy that every other sitcom had, which was the kids grew up.
Right.
They had to add more kids.
Right. Yeah. Which is how we got Raven-Symoné, by the way.
That's where we got Raven-Symoné. Exactly. For those of you who grew up on That's So Raven, that's where she came from. Right. She was, I want to say 4 years old when she started out on The Cosby Show. And then even Raven-Symoné grew up because the sort of the comic foil in the Cosby Show had been Rudy.
Right.
And then it was Raven-Symoné's character, whose name I can't remember, and I can't remember Rudy's actual name.
I think
Keisha Knight Pulliam.
Yeah, I think Raven-Symoné's character was Olivia. I want to say Olivia.
Yes, it was Olivia. You're right.
Yay,
so I mean, and all the shows, fantastic. All the shows did that. Cosby Show, Growing Pains, Family Ties. And Growing Pains, not only did they have another kid, they adopted a kid who was Leonardo DiCaprio, for those of you who want some, bad TV to look up to watch him.
That's true.
So that was a common thing back then.
Yeah,
so
it was essentially Cousin Oliver syndrome, if you're a Brady Bunch fan.
Oh my God, Cousin Oliver syndrome. Yeah, exactly. They had to bring in another kid. Right. And by the end of the Cosby Show, their kids were gone, but they had a cousin living there. I don't remember what happened, but the Cosby Show just got, again,
lots of.
If while you're there, but yeah, all these kids were getting married and moving out of the house. They couldn't all just live at their parents' house for the rest of their lives. So it was starting to go kind of downhill, and The Simpsons is never going to suffer from that. Simpsons,
it's timeless.
Everybody's been the same age.
Right.
For 30 years now. So, because it's an animated show, the Simpsons themselves are trapped in time.
Yeah, they didn't age the characters every season, so yeah.
No, they didn't age the characters. So that's that can seem strange, or it can keep the series running. And so far, it's kept series running. So. You started to see a little bit of a shift in the viewers, which is why I think The Simpsons did so well against The Cosby Show, because it was a different set of viewers. But anything else really had a hard time being put up. And I feel like that was a jerky older brother test of some shows, because it almost felt like the studio executive said, "Oh, you think your show's really good? Oh, okay, well, let's prove it. Let's put it up against Roseanne, or we'll put it up against The Cosby Show, or Seinfeld, or whatever. Or you got an hour-long drama? Okay, great. We'll put it up against ER. Things that everybody knows they're watching. That you kind of need to.
I think it was just like
understand that some of these are going to be the same.
Right. Well, it's just a lot of arrogant studio executives thinking that, okay, this new show is going to be better than the staple of television that's already on.
Yeah, that they're going to have the next Seinfeld or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think, and I don't know if the
this
idea was
this is going to be the thing that we could counter program against this hit, and it's going to knock it off because this show is so great. And it hardly ever does.
We're at the same, but the thing is, you don't realize that you could be competing with the exact same audience, and instead of getting half of that audience, you could get all of it if you just put it on Tuesdays.
Right.
Because all these years later, nobody's talking about what aired on Tuesdays. We're talking about what aired on Thursdays. That's what we remember. And I don't know if it was an attempt to sabotage. I know David Lynch felt sabotaged by ABC when he got moved around so much. And I don't know if they thought, oh, people are watching TV anyway. When they start flipping around, they're going to see this and think, oh, what am I watching here? But that's not how it worked back then. People, and this was another thing that they talked about in these little 5-minute documentaries that, and you and I have talked about on the podcast before, that Twin Peaks is what made it okay for smart people to watch television.
Right.
Smart people were avoiding television like the plague. If they said they watched it, they felt ashamed of themselves. They said, oh, I know I shouldn't, but I'm watching whatever. And to try and this is going to sound bad, and I don't mean it to sound as bad as it does, but to expect a lot of effort from an audience like that is already feeling like they're slumming it to try your show.
Right.
I think is asking a little too much.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're absolutely right about that. Because especially when you're wanting to bring in this audience that isn't there, and to have a show like Twin Peaks, which is so demanding of its viewers,
yes,
it's very hard. It's very hard. So yeah, I mean, just obviously there's the moving around on the network schedule obviously didn't work. The show went away, and I was kind of glad that like they didn't really sugarcoat it here in this little 5-minute documentary. They had talked about it like, oh hey, the network screwed it. They moved us around, and then they brought up some other reasons why the show, because talking about, like you said, Laura's death being resolved. And they also brought up some really interesting things that I hadn't really considered. The Gulf War they bring up. Which was going on at the time, talk about the Gulf because everybody was glued to the news coverage. And, that's just stuff you didn't really consider when you consider all this other stuff. You figure network meddling, but you don't really think about like, oh yeah, there was like real life big news event going on at the time.
Right, and there were people. They also talked about people with people watching the war on television for the first time. This had never happened.
Yeah.
When CNN first came on the air, and I think what was it, 82 when it first premiered?
Yeah, that
CNN
somewhere in there. Yeah.
Yeah. CNN was like, oh, okay, well, let's see what's in the paper today. I mean, they had no programming. They had nothing going on. And they weren't quite sure how they were going to do this. And what saved, and this again sounds terrible, but when you look at it from a purely business standpoint, what saved CNN was Jessica McClure falling down the well when she was 2 years old. Or 18 months or however old she was, because that was something that everyone wanted to see every second of.
Right.
And that's what got us. Right.
They were able to devote all that airtime to it, that like the local news
all that
couldn't.
Airtime to it.
Yeah, and
that was what got us used to. If there is a big story, you can just turn on CNN, and that's what that whole thing's going to be. Even to this day, CNN tries to have programming. They run documentaries, or they have different shows with different analysts, but if something's going on, you're gonna see that, because CNN has those. I think they're 5-part documentaries on the different decades. They did a 60s, and then they've done a 90s, all in everything in between.
Right.
And I want to say it was the 80s that was running when Prince died, but you didn't see it because it was coverage of Prince. And so when you have a war for the first time, for what it's worth, calling it a war, on television constantly, people who are watching television, that's what they're watching. They even parodied that on Saturday Night Live, where it was Wayne's World. They did a review of the war, and they said, we haven't done anything but watch this coverage. Even we don't even go to the bathroom. We just whiz in the laundry room sink. That people were watching that constantly, and to the exclusion of other stuff. And again, there were no DVRs, so it's not like you could watch one thing.
Right. Oh, you could tape it.
You could tape it. Nobody did that.
No.
People rarely
no.
did that. Usually when they taped something, it was because they were gone, not because they wanted to watch something else. I mean, that did happen, but
Yeah.
and this kind of thing has happened throughout history that a big news event, this is why Doctor Who almost got canceled, because Doctor Who premiered in 1963.
Right.
The same week that Kennedy was shot.
Yeah, the day after Kennedy was shot. They ended up having to rebroadcasting the first episode because of all the news coverage the day after Kennedy's assassination.
Right, nobody watched it.
Right.
Nobody. Of course, they wouldn't watch it. A world leader was assassinated. That's big news.
And if they hadn't rebroadcast it, it probably would never have survived.
It would never. Yeah, who cares about a time traveler's granddaughter when the president gets killed?
Right. Now, granted, it was the American. It was the American president, not the prime minister in England, but still, it was big news. Kennedy was such a cultural icon back then.
Well, and regardless, too, if the Prime Minister of England had been assassinated, that would have been big news over here too.
Right.
So, and I've said this before, that I feel like the United States, Canada, and Australia are kind of like they're all like cousins that share the same racist grandfather, being England. Right. So of course you're still going to be interested in what goes on with your family. Right.
Oh, that's true. Okay. I see what you get at.
So,
yeah.
So it doesn't matter.
That's funny.
It's still big. Well, do you remember? I'm sure, Charles, you remember the death of Princess Diana. That was all that was on TV for a week.
Right. Yep.
In a country that revolted, so we didn't have to have a monarchy. Yet we still watch constant coverage of analysts talking about the royal wedding and the royal marriage and the effect of paparazzi, things like that. So it doesn't matter.
And the actions of the queen and all this. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. Why is she not talking? Blah blah blah. So that kind of stuff really does. And when you have a show like this that already has a tenuous hold on its viewership, because there are people like us who are still talking about it with love 26 years later, 27 now.
Yes.
Oh my God, 29 years. It'll be 30 next year. That Twin Peaks first premiere next year. It'll be 30 years.
Well, no. Let's see. Okay, so this is 2018. So right now, this is the 28th year. So we'll have 2 years left.
Did it premiere in 1989?
No, it premiered. No, it's set in 1989, but it premiered in 1990.
Oh, yes. Okay, yes, it did. All right.
Yep.
So we got 2 more years before I start feeling really freaking old. Okay.
Exactly. Yes. So when we're still here on the podcast talking about here's Twin Peaks, the 30th anniversary episode. Yep. Exactly.
But sometimes
all right.
It's easy. Sometimes it's easy to get caught up in a phenomena.
Yes.
Whether or not you stick with it is another story. For example, I could not watch Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad made me way too tense.
I have watched all of Breaking Bad, by the way.
Breaking Bad is a fantastic show. Fantastic characters. Horrible things happen to these fantastic characters.
Yes.
It just made me too tense. It's this. I couldn't watch Silicon Valley either because I couldn't stand watching bad things happen to this nice guy every week. It just made me too tense.
Breaking Bad is a bit nihilistic.
It's a bit nihilistic, to say the least.
Yeah.
However, I watched the last episode of it. I think there were a ton of people who never watched an episode of Dallas before or since, but who wanted to see who shot JR.
Right, that's fair.
And so
just to see what the buzz is about.
Right. I think that's what you have here with Twin Peaks, is that everybody knows there's this show about this girl and who killed her. And when we know we're going to find out who killed Laura Palmer, you don't want to be the one the next day who's like, oh, I don't watch that show.
Right.
Because then you're going to be out, you're going to be excluded from every conversation that's happening at school or work the next day.
Right.
So when you have something like that, you can create more cliffhangers as you go along. For example, who shot Cooper? Where did Josie go? Things like that. You can manufacture those again, but nothing's ever going to be
No,
as a
it's
heavy
hard.
hitter.
It's hard to capture that lightning in a bottle like they did with Laura's death.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly.
And the fact that they took 4 episodes to kind of fumble around in the dark before figuring out, oh, hey, let's move forward with this Wyndham Earl storyline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That didn't help either. If they if they had set up Wyndham Earl right before resolving Laura,
well, and the thing,
and then maybe it would have kept people hooked, I think. But they, like I said, they just fumbled around.
It might have, because you had the Renault brothers, and there were 3 of them, and you had to pick them all off.
Right.
But they really had no relation to anybody you cared about, which is what was great about Wyndham Earl, is that he was in relation to Cooper, who everybody cared about.
Yep.
And so once you get a foil for a character that you love, then that's a little bit.
Yeah, and the fact that they
and
that they wove him into the whole mystery of the Black Lodge.
Yes.
That made it, and that was a good way to explain some things, and also just to build that mystery and make him much more compelling, and also more of a threat, because hey, he's got access to this other dimensional realm. That's not good. So,
he's into the Black Lodge just as much as Cooper is, but for all the wrong reasons.
Right.
But like you said, he's the Moriarty to Cooper's Sherlock Holmes.
Mm-hmm.
If Dr. Watson had a mortal enemy, would anybody have cared? Not as much. I don't think they would have cared nearly as much.
Yeah.
So
instead of Reichenbach Falls, it would have been I don't know, there's an open fire hydrant in the street spraying water. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Right.
It
all has to do with who you set the villain up to be against is as important as who your villain is.
Exactly. So, and that also makes for a better hero, because you have a great hero has to have a good villain. And if you don't believe me, just look at Batman and the Joker, or Superman and Lex Luthor. Stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, a good hero is defined by his nemesis, and vice versa, I think.
This is very true, and don't even try again with somebody like Batman, who has a couple of them.
That's true. Yeah, one or two. Yeah.
He's got a couple of them that want to kill him, and one of them that wants to kill him and be his girlfriend. So.
Exactly. So the other stuff they talk about here is that they talk about the Wrapped in Plastic fanzine. They talk about the Twin Peaks festivals, which I have never been to, and I really want to go to one of those one day.
I've never been to them either. They just sounded so magical when I was a kid that here's this group of people that, first of all,
you have a Twin Peaks convention? I need to go to this. Yeah.
Not only is it people who get my favorite show and actually watch it, because I didn't have a lot of friends that watched it with me.
Right.
But there's also sometimes the actors show up. Oh my God. But that was the thing back in the 90s, to have these conventions, to have these fanzines, to have this videotape circulation, the videotape trading, things like that. That was not easy back then. When there's no internet, and this is all done through, little ads in the back of plastic, or the Twin Peaks Gazette, or word of mouth.
Keep circulating the tapes, as they say in Mystery Science Theater.
Exactly, keep circulating the tapes. So, because Twin Peaks it was on once, and ABC never reran it again.
Yep.
It got rerun in 1995 on Bravo, and that was the first time a lot of people were able to see all the episodes.
They released it on VHS home video, but it was it was a really expensive set.
It was a full set, really expensive, and not a lot of places had it for rental.
Right.
At least my local stores didn't have it for rental. It had that first set of the first 8 episodes, but not the whole series.
Mm-hmm.
So when it ran on Bravo, that was the first time I saw some of those middle episodes that I had missed. Because ABC never reran that stuff. It was never like.
No, thankfully.
I believe it's 3 years. A show has to be on 3 years in order to qualify for syndication.
Generally, because it's usually roughly about 65 episodes. So generally,
Yeah, and Twin Peaks did not.
no, it did not make that. No, not at all. Not even close. But
No.
thankfully, I had recorded every episode as it aired, so I had my tapes. So
see, that's the thing, is that you're just enough older than me that when Twin Peaks was on the air,
yes.
you could have like had a job.
Well, I was in college, so yeah. I was in college at the time.
There was no way.
Yeah, I would come home from college and like get some donuts from the local like supermarket or whatever, and sit back and watch them eat donuts and watch Twin Peaks after college, after a day, the university at the Central Florida. So that was fun. Let's see what else. They talk about like streaming services bringing Twin Peaks to a new generation, which is probably true because of Netflix. I think a lot of people got into Twin Peaks watching it on Netflix. And
yeah, I think so too. Twin Peaks is kind of legendary at this point, that it was this.
Yeah.
People still know who David Lynch is.
Right.
And
I think they heard Gen Xers like us talking about how great it is, and just saying, like, you need to watch this. And so some of them, probably at their urging, ended up watching it, and a good chunk of people liked it enough to like, hey, okay, this is awesome. Why are there only 2 seasons? And there's a movie. Okay, I'll watch the movie.
Okay, I'll watch it.
And then what? And so, now we got a season 3. So there you go.
And there was one guy talking about, the bringing this to a new audience, says that he watches it now with his 9 and 12-year-old. Right. Who subjects a 9 and 12-year-old to this show?
I don't know. I can't imagine a 12-year-old maybe, but not a 9-year-old. Definitely not.
I'm not even talking about, they're going to be scared, not going to get it, but it's just, why would you subject your children to such never-ending heartache with his Twin Peaks?
Can you imagine the nightmares watching it at 9 years old of like Bob crawling over a couch toward the camera, or
I to this day
can't
look at The Shining. I can't imagine what would have happened if I had seen Bob when I was 9 years old.
Right.
I to this day can't look at Bob, and I was 15.
I was going to say, you get freaked out by Bob now.
I'm still freaked out by Bob. I can't handle it.
Right. I know you can't even handle my Bob Funko hanging in the background. So I can't imagine
my
9
Bob
years old.
Funko I've got cabinets with doors that all my DVDs are in, and the glass doors.
You lock it up.
It's not that it's locked up. It's that it's a glass door, but then there's the wood part that the glass goes into.
Yeah.
Bob is situated on the shelf, so when you close the door, he's hidden by the wooden part of the cabinet door.
So you don't know he's in there. So you don't know he's in there until you open the door.
I don't have to look at him. I don't have to look at him staring at me when I'm sitting watching TV. He's behind the wood part of the glass door.
That's hilarious.
For real. Like, I did that on purpose because I couldn't stand him sitting there staring at me.
With those beady eyes.
He's scary. He's so scary.
Yep. That's awesome. Part 3, Renaissance, is the next part, where we get like, they're talking about like a sense of fan community. So we get like, we can see stuff like fan artwork and some like Twin Peaks influenced things like Twin Peaks burlesque, which I thought was rather interesting. I'd heard about that.
Yeah.
And tribute bands like Silencio.
I don't want to see it.
What? You don't want to see Twin Peaks burlesque?
Unless it's jazz erotica, I don't want to see it.
Okay. Unless it's Lana, you don't want to see it. All right.
Lana's jazz erotica, yeah. Unless it's billed as that, I don't think they're really trying.
Yeah, exactly. And
yeah, Silencio is.
I never heard. I haven't really heard much from them, so I need to check them out.
It's a very loving Angelo Badalamenti inspired band. They are very very true to their roots, or true to their influences, shall we say.
Excellent. I have to definitely check those out. And then, of course, then they wrap it up with like David Lynch and Mark Frost announcing Twin Peaks Season 3 on Twitter, which I remember. I remember that very moment when it came out, and just how like my jaw hit the floor when that happened. I'm just like,
That was fantastic.
I remember being at work and seeing that, and I'm just like, oh, this is awesome.
You know what this means? Well, I remember too when they talked about initially it coming back, and then they talked about David Lynch getting pissed off and not wanting to do it. I'm like, all right, that's, we're done here.
Yep.
And then this happened, and then you started seeing commercials, and you're like, this is going to be real. This is really going to happen. Oh my God.
Yeah, it really didn't feel real to me until like we started seeing the teaser trailers, and just was like, oh my God, this is actually happening. So
that meant they filmed something.
Right, exactly. So, like, I've seen it. There's clips, there's footage, it exists. Real. This is really real. There ain't no going back. Okay, so we move on. So let's move on to disc 2, where we have the Black Lodge Chevron floor menu.
Yes.
This has parts 3 and 4, and also has a combined 3 and 4.
Mm-hmm. Which is again how they aired it. It was combined.
Right. But this one, I think I'd rather watch 3 and 4 separately. Just my personal.
Well, like
preference.
I said, I liked having 2 hours of Twin Peaks.
That's
thought that was.
Yeah, it is nice though. I agree.
I would have binged this. I would have binged this if I'd had the opportunity.
Yeah. So this has the big Twin Peaks panel special feature on this from San Diego Comic-Con last year, also known as Twin Peaks: A Damn Good Panel. And so this runs about an hour, and I was glad to see this because obviously I didn't get to go to San Diego Comic-Con because it's so damn hard to get into these days.
It's too hard to get into. It's too much money. There's too many people.
Right.
And when this kind of thing happens, when the panels you want to see anyway just get released on DVD, then it makes me even less anxious to try and get a ticket for next year.
That's the advantage of being an older fan. You don't feel like, okay, I can be patient. I can afford to be patient. As long as they release it, I'm good.
Right. Or even you get, IO9 is going to give you the highlights of what happened at the panel anyway.
Or
if they're going to reveal something.
Or somebody's going to upload it to YouTube anyway.
Right. Somebody's going to have their little phone video or something if you are lucky enough to be able to bring your phone into the, because I've been to some panels where you've had to surrender your phone. And it's taken me like an hour to get my phone back because everybody's got to go through the line with their ticket, with their phone and their camera and things like that.
Crazy.
So, it was, when was the last time I did that? It was a panel with Bruce Boxleitner before Tron Legacy came out where I had to surrender my phone.
So here's the tip. Bring 2 phones. Get a burner phone. Surrender the one phone, and you have the second phone. Little tip, kids. Just from me to you.
Exactly. And don't tell anybody where you put your burner phone because they don't want to know the answer to that question.
No. Yeah, we won't talk about where the burner phone's hidden.
Yeah. The funny thing about this is that David Lynch was not at the panel, but he did a little video at the beginning of it.
Yeah, this introductory, like it's, I don't even call it a speech because it's just these random moments, and which is that it was good.
Right, and
go ahead.
My favorite was just really illustrates that David Lynch's sense of humor is very different than most people's, where he basically holds up like a dead arm and rips a ball from it, and he says, "This is the last golf ball O.J. Simpson ever shot before he went to prison."
Exactly.
It's like David Lynch's sense of humor is very different, and I appreciate that quite a bit.
Yeah,
but
you wouldn't expect Lynch to make an O.J. Simpson reference, but there you go, exactly. And he's talking about like he gets interrupted by supposedly by a horse. It's just the sound effects, and then like a woman with a gun that goes off, and then the horse steps on his cat, and then the cat bites him because it's so pissed off of being stepped on, and it's just it's very.
It sounds
odd.
Like he's down. It sounds like he's inside Oscar the Grouch's trash can.
Yeah.
Where because I don't know if you remember about Oscar the Grouch, but he would go downstairs. It sounded like he'd go downstairs, and he had a pet elephant and things like that. So
you'd hear all these sound effects.
It was very funny. Yep.
It's theater,
the panel
theater
is
of the
moderated.
Mind. Yeah.
The panel is moderated by Damon Lindelof of Lost fame.
Right.
And he just kind of came off as a pain in the ass to me in this. He starts out talking about how weird he was.
Right.
And I just think when people try to make a conscious effort to convince you what a weirdo they are,
it's like,
they're not really that weird.
See, I'm one of you. I'm an outsider too. Yeah.
Right. And he talked about
so you're
what he was like in high school, wearing vests and saddle shoes, listening to doo-wop, but wanting to fit in. I'm like, if you really were a weirdo, you didn't want to fit in. So
yeah, exactly.
I think he talked a little too much about himself. So you're saying
he's essentially a poser, is what you're saying?
I'm saying he tries too hard.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm saying he's trying too hard, and when you are moderating a Twin Peaks panel, nobody wants to hear about you.
Yes.
And granted, Lost did have quite a cult following, but I think they're very different animals, and nobody's here for you. And they had a good mix of new people to old people, and some of the interesting revelations that they had was that Matthew Lillard still has not watched Twin Peaks. At the time of that panel.
Apparently a number of them hadn't. Like Tim Roth hadn't watched it. And it's kind of funny because when someone actually calls them out on that for not watching it, one of the fans that does the fan question.
I love Tim Roth. He said in the 90s I wasn't doing the David Lynch thing, I was doing the Quentin thing. And I thought that was hilarious. Mm-hmm. That is very true. That's where he was.
Yeah, because he was doing like Reservoir Dogs and
Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction. He was also in Pulp Fiction.
Right.
So
I love you too, honey bunny.
I love you, honey bunny. I love you too, pumpkin. But the stories of how they got the call and where they were when they found out Twin Peaks was coming back, I thought were fantastic. One of my favorites was Dana Ashbrook, because he and Cheryl Lee were on their way.
Yeah, to a Twin Peaks convention.
Twin Peaks convention in London.
Yeah.
And he got the call. He's like, I'm here with Cheryl. Can I talk to her about it? And they're like, yeah, but they couldn't tell anybody else, but they were both so excited to know that they were coming back, which I thought would have been adorable, because it's almost like, that to me feels like when you go back to your 20th high school reunion and you see like your high school boyfriend or something.
Right.
And, you're both married to other people now, but you're both like, oh, hey. So
nice.
So I think that must have been adorable to see the two of them just completely giddy with each other. I think that would have been awesome.
Yeah, can you imagine if we don't know if it was like before or after. I think it was before the convention. So they had.
Yeah.
Can you imagine like them going to the convention? They're like, oh, we can't, like, not even hinting at this.
Oh my God! Can you? They would be like, oh, I really miss Twin Peaks. They'd be like, yeah, me too.
Yep.
Yeah, it sucks, but it's no more. Mm-hmm. Like trying to stay cool.
Somebody should really do something about that.
Yeah, somebody should bring that back. I wonder if that's ever going to happen. Yeah, there's. Oh my God! I would have been so busted.
Right. That's funny. I like that.
Alive again, David Lynch would have called me up and yelled at me.
There's a great anecdote, I guess, from Tim Roth, where he's talking about that apparently, he never met Lynch before, and apparently Lynch didn't know that he and Jennifer Jason Leigh worked together on The Hateful Eight.
Yeah, that's right.
And then they end up working together in this, which I thought was interesting, because I would have sworn that, like, you would think that with The Hateful Eight that Lynch would have been aware of that, but apparently not. So
he might have been aware of it, but he might not. He just might not have seen it. I mean, I think the concept of Lynch living in his own world most of the time is a fairly easy concept to get behind.
Well, especially after watching all these footage of him in these special features, you could definitely see that.
Exactly, and Tim Roth said he'd never met David Lynch, but he'd met David Lynch's daughter.
Right.
So
Jennifer Lynch, yeah. So.
Yeah. And a lot of other people have been. And Naomi Watts had not been in Twin Peaks, but she'd worked with David Lynch, and so that was it was an interesting group of people that were there, and I don't think they gave enough time to everybody, but that's the nature of a
No.
panel.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously you're going to have your stars. You know, like obviously a lot of the questions were for Kyle MacLachlan, but Naomi Watts got a number of questions.
Yes, she did get a number of questions,
But
and
but you mean but people like that oh what's his name, Don Murray.
Don Murray, yeah,
Yeah, Don
he
Murray,
kind
of
of just
course.
sat there.
Yeah, he did. He kind of like, just, well, he's just like, he probably was like, he's probably never been to a Comic-Con panel or anything before in his life. So this is probably
Yeah,
like an all new experience for him. Um,
exactly.
but,
I did like the
or
guy
he had
who
like
asked.
Everett McGill, who is, doesn't do this very often.
I loved Everett McGill, and I didn't realize this, but after he mentioned it, I thought, yeah, I haven't seen you in quite a while. The last thing he did behind a camera was like 1999. So he hasn't really been on TV or in movies for quite a while.
No.
His story of David Lynch happening to call him at the time he was at the house he has that where he keeps old cars,
Yeah, he was
which
like working on a car at the time, out in the middle of
he
nowhere, probably.
old house that he has for old cars, which I love that the guy that plays Big Ed has a house just for old cars. I think
Right.
that's fantastic. And he said, he's like, I haven't heard this phone ring in like 10 years. And David, and he said that that coming back to work with David Lynch was very womb-like. That it was just so comforting. It was so sweet and nice and comforting. And I think that's an interesting thing about David Lynch, that everybody has this, and you can say this a lot about I think weird people, that everybody thinks they're weird all the time. And they're not necessarily, they still have to eat 3 times a day. They still have to, go shopping for clothes. They
Right.
still have to pay the water bill. They still have to do all the normal everyday people stuff. So I think that's an interesting thing about David Lynch, about, how everybody talks about how sweet he is and how much they love him. And he does kind of get in his own world and is very aware of his process. That was another thing they talked about in this panel, that Jim Belushi tried ad-libbing.
I was going to bring that up because that's one of my favorite anecdotes, is where this fan asks, like what added story material do cast members bring to each episode, and then Kyle does that Jim Belushi anecdote, which I thought was
He's like,
great.
they don't. Right, and basically he tries something, and as soon as he's done with the line, David Lynch says, "Cut."
Yep.
Mr. Belushi, do you want to stay after class?
Do I have to report you to the principal's office?
And he's just like, nope.
Yep.
He's like, all right, I understand that this is not.
Can you imagine how awkward that moment must have been on set?
That is it. People.
Oh my God.
People are very stressed out these days.
I would think so.
But I thought that was it. Now, and this, I have, and I apologize if I get comments about this, but I sometimes have a real love-hate relationship with my brethren that is the geek culture population.
I understand.
And I think you probably know where I'm going with this when it comes to the questions. Now, some of these questions I thought were
I do.
kind of goofy, where somebody asked Matthew Lillard to do Bill Hastings in his Shaggy voice.
Right.
Which, how could you not ask that? I mean,
and Matthew Lillard is so sick of Shaggy, apparently.
He's like, I love Shaggy, I just don't want to. He's like, I want to be Bill Hastings forever.
Yep.
And how bad must it be to be identified with Shaggy when what you'd rather be is the guy who gets his head blown off by supernatural powers in the back of a cop car?
Exactly.
That's who you'd rather be. Now, to me, Matthew Lillard is going to be his character from Scream forever. I mean, that's what I see most of the time.
Right.
Because he was one of my favorite moments in Scream, where he says, "Did you really call the cops?" "You bet your ass I did." Then he just starts to cry. "My mom and dad are going to be so mad at me." I just thought that was hilarious. I don't know why I thought that was funny, but
he just needs to do something more mainstream so everybody forgets about Shaggy and focuses on something else.
That is the most mainstream thing he's ever done. So
yeah.
the guy who goes up and says, I'm not a Twin Peaks fan. I've never seen Twin Peaks, but I love Dune, and I want to ask you a Dune question.
Yeah.
If you're not a Twin Peaks fan, sit your ass back down in your chair and let a Twin Peaks fan ask a question at the Twin Peaks panel.
That stuff drives me. That stuff drives me nuts. It makes me cringe every time I watch stuff like this. Because obviously I've been to fan panel or convention panels, and it's just like, why are you wasting somebody's time? That hey, maybe they would like to ask that question. Exactly. So
now I have been to panels at smaller shows, and there are times when you're at a panel where people would rather go to listen than to ask. And so sometimes I've been at panels where I've been able to ask multiple questions because people are very quiet. I was at a panel one time with Mark McClure and Margot Kidder.
Okay.
And nobody was really asking a lot of questions. We had like 15 minutes left, and it was starting to get a little bit awkward. So I raised my hand and I said, can I ask a non-Superman question? And Mark McClure said, he's like, yeah, sure. We've done other movies. And we spoke about it. And I asked him what Russ Meyer was like, what it was like working with Russ Meyer. For those of you who don't know who Russ Meyer is, Google him, especially if you enjoy boobies, you will enjoy Russ Meyer. If you want to find really large boobies pre-boob job, Russ Meyer's your guy. And Margot Kidder didn't realize that he had ever worked with Russ Meyer. So she's like, when did you work with Russ Meyer? And so they talked about Amazon Women on the Moon, and he mentioned that. But the thing is, there were maybe 20, 30 people in that room, and there was a lull in conversation, and I had at least seen Superman. Okay?
Yes.
San Diego is gigantic, and these rooms fill up. Like, they have to close the door and lock people out. Sometimes you have to take a number to be able to get in. This is not just, Twin Peaks panel's going on, I guess I'll wander over there and see what's happening in that ballroom. That's not what happens. This is a room full of people. People line up next to microphones to ask their questions.
They line up for hours just to get into the panel.
They line up for hours just to get into the panel.
Yeah.
When you go past these rooms, you have people lined up 2 panels prior to be in the panel that they're lined up at 11 for the panel that happens at 4. So why was that guy there? Why did you go to Twin Peaks panel when you've never seen Twin Peaks and ask a Dune question? Okay? That's just, that's not the arena for it, if you ask me. I personally think that if there's a bunch of other people waiting to ask questions about the show you're at the panel for, sit your ass down and ask Everett McGill that question later when he's signing. I don't know. But yeah, San Diego does not have time for your crap.
Well, the questions I noticed, like, as I was watching this, there's questions like, okay, who has made you feel starstruck? And
who gives a shit?
Exactly. It's like, we're here to talk about, let's try to stay on topic here, people.
Can we try to talk? And I've also been to panels. I did a panel in Dallas where it was Jane Weedland, who I absolutely adore.
From the Go-Go's, yes.
From the Go-Go's, who was starting her own comic book, Lady Robotica.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
I know it was Bill Morrison and Tony Rodriguez and some other people. I think Tony Flex was there too, talking about this new comic that they're doing. Well, it had not come out yet.
Mm-hmm.
So we tried to ask as many questions as we could about the comic, but there's only so much you can ask about a comic you've never seen.
Yes.
So then it started going into sort of music questions, things like that. But I think at the time...
At least try to exhaust the topic before you move on to other topics.
Try to exhaust the topic. And at the time of this panel, of this Twin Peaks panel, I know at least episode 8 had already aired because Matthew Lillard mentioned, he's like, did you all see episode 8? This is a weird TV show.
Mm-hmm.
So he referenced that, and I'm not quite sure where they were in it, but it had been on, like, about half of it had aired at this point.
Yeah, I think about I want to say like 4 episodes had aired.
No, because remember he mentioned episode 8.
Oh, you know what? That's right. Yeah, I know you just said that, but yeah, okay. I was thinking it was just 4 episodes, but maybe I'm wrong.
So at least 8 have aired, possibly 10. Okay. So
there was at least things to ask them about. Yes,
there was at least things to ask about, and I did like the guy in the Dougie cosplay.
Yeah.
With the green jacket and the tie and
the guy I liked was the guy as Cooper with a pocket cassette recorder.
Mm-hmm.
And then he does the click.
Yes.
after asking the question, which was I like that. That was a good move.
I liked the guy who was dressed up like Dougie and then Kyle on the clock and said, "It's like looking into a mirror." It was so good. And then I will say I did like Damon Lindelof's prompting him to say, "How would you like to greet these people?" And of course Kyle MacLachlan went up and went, "Hello."
Yeah, he teed that up nicely for him.
That was a good setup. But yeah, some of these questions are like, why are you asking this?
Right.
Like, why are you here?
Yeah, I mean, they were asking stuff like, like, well, if Agent Cooper and Diane from Mulholland Drive were to get coffee, what would their conversation be like? It's like, how are they supposed to answer this? I mean, they're not writers. They're
actors. Yeah,
actors. It's like they need the script to like deliver this stuff. They can't just think this stuff off the top of their heads and entertain you. But
right, exactly, and they're not going to create their own fan fiction for you in the next minute. So
yeah.
It's panels are a mixed bag for that reason, right? Because you do rely on the questions, but at the same time, some of the questions are
and that's the problem because with fans, like a lot of them are just naturally socially awkward, which is cool. I respect it. Right. I respect that, yeah. But as a result, they may not, because they're so socially awkward, they may not think of like, oh, hey, maybe I shouldn't be asking this question. Maybe.
Well. And there's also
that sense of tact or that sense of appropriateness for the situation. Or yeah, right. Exactly.
Well, and also for me, I'm sure you've heard me describe myself as a recovering music snob. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like going to a Twin Peaks panel and saying, I've never watched this show, but I love Dune, is the movie and TV version of I liked his early stuff better.
Yeah.
And you just want to say, okay, well, good for you. And this guy who asked the question probably is not listening to this podcast because he's never seen Twin Peaks, so why would he bother?
Yeah, that would be... I don't think you have to worry about offending him.
Is obviously too young to have been born when Dune or Twin Peaks came out.
Well, you could have watched it on Netflix or something.
I understand that, but I'm just saying it's not like he's been a David Lynch follower since Elephant Man or something.
Yeah, right.
He's not, it's not like he was there for Dune being released in the theaters and wondering why nobody went to see it, blah, blah, blah.
So, hashtag fake Peaks Geek, I guess.
Just hashtag hasn't gotten there yet. It's one thing to, to use this in music terms. It's one thing to say, for example, you prefer the Smiths to Morrissey.
Yeah.
Because you thought Morrissey was a jerk when they broke up, or you like Johnny, personally, I prefer the Smiths to Morrissey because I really like Morrissey and Johnny Marr. I like Johnny Marr's guitar playing. And there are some good Morrissey songs out there, but they don't have Johnny Marr's guitar. So that's where my preference lies.
Okay, fair enough.
But it's another thing to be like 15 and trying to say it, because the whole concept around I like their early stuff better is shorthand for saying I've been into them longer than you have.
Right.
And if there's no way you could have been into somebody when that happened, what's the point of saying it? When you were obviously born in either 1990 or after, like I said, this guy looked like he couldn't have been any more than 28 years old.
Yeah.
when all of it for you is going back on home video and watching it in the first place, what's the point of saying you like the earlier stuff better?
Just to sound more self-important, I guess. I don't know.
I guess. And, I know I've been guilty of it myself sometimes. I really do love the Beatles pop music more than their psychedelic music.
Right.
Partially because I love the movies so much. But I'm not going to try and break that down into earlier or later because it doesn't matter anyway. I was not born for 6 years after the Beatles broke up.
Right.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if I like the early stuff or the later stuff better. It was all over by the time I even got there. So who cares?
See, I'm weird. I like both the pop music era and the psychedelic era.
I like them both, but if you gave me, those two best ofs, the blue one and the one,
you prefer the pop.
I would pick the
right.
the earlier years over it. If you said put on some Beatles,
right,
that's what I do.
Right.
Okay,
you prefer, the early '60s Beatles to the late '60s Beatles.
Help is like my favorite Beatles thing ever. The movie, the album, I love all this. But I also love Yellow Submarine. I'm not going to say I don't love it, but I'm saying when it comes to that kind of thing, I mean, if we're going to break it down in movies, Help is my favorite. But yeah, just that whole concept of I like his earlier stuff better. The point of that statement is to say, I've been into it longer than you have. I was, he sold out after blah 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 or whatever. It's like, if you weren't even there, why do that? And if you don't even watch the TV show, don't.
It's a douche move, basically.
Don't waste somebody's time. Somebody who's been really into Twin Peaks and would have loved to ask a Twin Peaks related question could have been right behind you and could have been cut off from the question line because of your stupid question.
Right.
And I don't know why that guy got under my skin so much, but it's like
apparently he did.
when you think about, and this this is rolling into a bunch of different con culture, nerd culture, all that stuff. So I know I'm going on about it, but just to think of the work that guy did to go to this panel and ask a Dune question. He wasted his day. He wasted his day lining up for that panel, sitting in that panel.
No, he probably doesn't see it that way because he probably figured, well, I got what I wanted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he probably does.
To the detriment of everybody else, but he doesn't see it that way. It's just more.
Yeah.
It's just more like, okay, I satisfied my own curiosity, regardless of how it may have affected you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right.
That kind of being self-absorbed.
Yes, kind of being self-absorbed. Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, Twin Peaks panel at San Diego.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. Some douchey people. Worth watching.
Yeah, it is. And there was apparently we found out there's 7,000 fans there, so that was cool.
Oh yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So not bad for a show that's been around for 25 years.
No, not bad for. And if you noticed, those were mostly young people.
Yeah.
There weren't a lot of 40 to 45-year-olds.
No. And I think that's a testament to Netflix, that a new generation, which is what you want, because if you don't have the new generation, the show isn't going to survive, or the fandom is eventually going to get old and die out. You have to replace the people that kind of lose interest with a brand new group, and so.
Right.
And so it's kind of good that we're actually getting second generation Twin Peaks fans now.
Mm-hmm. I think that's wonderful.
It is great.
I don't think you should show it to your 9-year-old, but I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, don't show it to your 9-year-old. Just show them The Shining instead. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's way less scary.
Yeah, exactly. I'm totally being facetious about that. So disc 3 and 4, 5 and 6. Again, those are the episodes, so nothing really much to cover there, although it's just great to have the episodes, and they look great, they sound great.
Oh, they look fantastic.
Yep. Disc 7, which has the stoplight menu, this has parts 17 and 18, the final 2 episodes, and of course the combined 17 and 18, so Xan can enjoy another 2-hour.
2 whole hours of Twin Peaks.
Yep. I can't ask for anything better, in my opinion. So we have the first...
We're spoiled day and age of binge watching, that when you have to watch a week of television or an hour of television a week, you're like, what What am I supposed to do now?
Exactly. What is this 1 hour a week thing? I don't get it. So we had a very lovely dream, 1 week in Twin Peaks, which is about a half-hour documentary.
So
It's by Charles de Lazarica, and it has footage from September 2015 when the cast and crew were filming, and which is kind of cool. So, we get some.
including September 28th, which was Kyle MacLachlan's first day on the set.
Yeah, I was going to bring that because that's so we actually get Kyle's first day on the, and they make a point of staying the date. So yeah, September 28th, 2015. So mark it down, put it in your calendar.
Write it in your diary.
Write it in your diary, exactly. And apparently his first scene or filming was when he showed up as Mr. C at the sheriff's station, and apparently this was like. I guess Harry Goes talks about like having 47 takes because of a station wagon. Like
the lift
he was having
station wagon. He couldn't get it to close or open properly, so they had to do it a million times. But he also tells this wonderful story about how he hadn't seen Kyle MacLachlan in years, and they were both in the makeup trailer at the same time. He's on one end and Kyle's on the other, and Kyle's there with the long hair and the black contacts and dressing up like Mr. C, and he just got up and went down to the other end and just gave him a big hug. It felt so good to be back. Even if he was the evil guy, it was good to be back together. And I thought that was, I think people want that. I think people like that idea that the people who work together like working together.
Right.
That when you find out that a cast or a director or a producer, that they hate each other in real life, it just makes it, there's a melancholy feel behind it after you learn that sort of a thing. So to find out from this documentary that not only was everybody happy to see each other again, just the cast, but also a lot of the crew were the same people that had worked together on either the original Twin Peaks or other David Lynch projects, that everybody just likes being with each other. I think that there's a warmth to that adds something to the mystique of a show when it has that added benefit.
Yeah, it just seems like Lynch over the years has cultivated these relationships, and he knows the people that I'm guessing that he feels that will get along and work well with each other, and he's loyal to them. It's like, these are the people I want to get. I don't want to, like just bring in a new crew for the sake of a new crew.
Right.
I want to get the people that I trust, get the people that I know are going to be good, and the people that are going to get along with each other. So, and that's kind of, that's credit, because that's essentially being a manager, is that, and that you have to kind of manage these various personalities, and obviously being creative types, you're going to have a lot of creative conflicts and personalities. So if you actually have people that like each other and get along, you want to keep that as long as possible, I would think.
I think so too, and I think it says a lot about David Lynch, and that's one thing you get from all of these documentaries about how everybody just loves him.
Right.
And I think they would follow him to the ends of the earth for whatever project he wanted to do. I think that, from Everett McGill calling the experience womb-like, just sweet and warm and comforting.
Well, Don Murray talks about, like, in the San Diego Con panel, he talks about that the set he was on, just felt very relaxed and comfortable.
And that's the thing about David Lynch, is that you get this feeling that he is not a harsh taskmaster. It's not a tense situation, but it is a very professional situation. And I think when you show that in your own actions, I think you foster that behavior in everyone else that's around you.
Yeah.
And this documentary showed that he's very in the moment of what he's doing. And that's one thing everybody said about him, is that he knows exactly what he wants.
Well, the observation I got on Lynch was watching these various documentaries. First and foremost, he smokes a lot of cigarettes. Holy crap.
He does. Yes.
I mean, just about every scene of where he's filming,
it's like
something,
a constant thing.
He's constantly lighting up and smoking and taking drags and whatnot. And then, he other than that, but he's hands-on. I mean,
Very much. He's right there.
there's scenes where like I think it was this like one of the documentaries here that like when Ray is laying on the floor after being shot, and
Yes, and he's pouring the blood.
Lynch is pouring the blood by his head to get the exact kind of blood pool that he
Right.
wants.
He sort of gently helps Ray's head up off of the ground, pours the blood, puts it back down gently. Yeah, he knows exactly what he wants, and he's willing to do what he needs to do to get what he wants. And I think, again, that's the kind of thing that fosters that behavior around with everyone around you, that if you know what you want and you know how to get it and you're willing to try for it, people are going to be willing to try for you.
Yeah. And apparently, I think he probably gets respect because he is that hands-on with everything.
I'm sure he does.
He's a true visionary. He knows what he wants. And, if it doesn't look exactly like he wants it to look, he'll step in himself and make it look like he wants it to look.
Exactly. Or I don't think it's in A Week in Twin Peaks, but I think it's the one where they're in the waiting room.
Yeah.
And they can't, Laura's going to be taken out of existence. She's screaming.
The Richard Beymer films, yeah.
The Richard Beymer films, yeah. And they just can't get it to look like they want it to look because of that raising platform that they're having trouble with.
Yeah.
And, he's talking about possible solutions. He's making jokes about it. And they're going to figure it out, but he's going to be part of figuring it out. He's not going to say, go do this and then show me what you've got. He's going to be part of that.
He's not Mr. like, okay, you take care of this for me. You just
right.
He's like, we're going to figure this out. Yeah.
And he actually means a literal we, not a royal we.
Yeah.
He's going to be there if he needs to be there to fix it and to come up with a solution as well.
Yeah. Now, there were some moments, obviously, during the production that we saw the behind-the-scenes filming where he gets really touchy and kind of, that little uncomfortableness. And there was this one part, I think it was during the San Diego Con panel where Kyle MacLachlan's talking about this, where he said that, that David's like, he's talking about him being like a true artist, and he talks about like, but there's a place where David goes that nobody can touch him there. Nobody can reach him there.
Right.
We just, you just have to let him be there by himself. You can't connect, you can connect to David, but there's this part of him you can't connect with. The artist part. The artist part. The artiste,
And I think we've seen that in other David Lynch behind the scenes stories, especially since we know that part of David Lynch's creative growth was, in fact, seeing a naked, battered woman walking down the street.
Right.
And I think that does something to a kid internally that makes them
apparently
have a lot of internalizing. I can see someone internalizing that and turning it into something all their own.
Right.
David Lynch also, I want to say this is in the extra features of Eraserhead 2000, that DVD release, or possibly the Criterion release of Eraserhead. I have both of them, so I forget which one's which. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But he talks about when he was working on that movie, he was living on the set. And there was a room there that had no windows that he slept in, that unless you turned on the one bare light bulb, it was complete blackness. And he said it was perfect. It was so restful. There were no outside distractions. You were just there with your own thoughts, and you could sleep really well because there was no light coming in. There wasn't a lot of noise. And I remember hearing that thinking, wow, that's like the ultimate sleep experience. You have no extra sensory.
I was just saying, it's almost like a sensory deprivation chamber.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was like. So he said he felt like he could leave the physical Eraserhead world, and then as he drifted off to sleep, sort of.
So it goes all altered states.
Kind of altered statesy, yeah, kind of altered statesy, which is very, very interesting. And I think And David Lynch, as we've seen in behind the scenes and interviews, he's not a particularly verbose person. It's also evidenced in some of his script writing too.
Right.
So the idea that he has a very internal creative process doesn't surprise me in the slightest.
No. But again, he comes off as like this pure visionary. I mean, like he knows what he wants and he goes after it. So, and that's probably why he's such a strong creative force as a result. That
Yes,
he knows what he wants and he goes after it. So I thought, so that was interesting. Let's see what else. Let's talk some other real quick highlights of this. I think it's funny. Harry Goes was talking about getting his ponytail cut.
That cracked me up. The idea of Harry Goes coming in with a ponytail,
right? probably just like dude, it's the 90s are over. You have to cut that ponytail off.
Well, and they're just like, this is not what Andy would be wearing.
No.
You got to cut it off. He's like, all right, whatever.
Yeah. So I thought that was good.
That was good.
One of the more interesting filming stuff, behind the scenes stuff was I thought was the filming of Richard at Sylvia's house.
Oh, and Harry Goes talking about how that was
Eamon Farron, who played Richard.
He was watching that scene and how he said, here's this beautiful kid just being horrific. And it really is, even when there are cameras and you're seeing the behind the scenes of it, you're still really tense because Johnny's still there tied up to the chair and falling over, and you know that he's horrible. He's horrible.
It pretty much feels just as unpleasant watching the behind the scenes stuff as it did watching the actual episode.
It was probably worse because you were probably there and you could feel the reverberation of the air when he was yelling.
Right.
And when you hear Johnny yelling, trying to get up and knowing something bad is happening to his mother and he can't do anything about it, it's probably that energy probably makes it even tenser.
Probably.
That was fantastic.
Then we got one of the other notable things I thought was the night filming of Michael Cera as Wally Brando.
I like that he did that
he did
in one or two takes,
the entire speech. You find out he did the entire speech in one take, and then Lynch asked him to do it again.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Okay, can you give me one more of that? Yeah.
Just one more, just for just to be on the safe side.
Yeah.
So that was pretty funny. Yeah. Week in Twin Peaks was fascinating, and one of the fascinating things about it to me was this was in the Richard Beymer films. The Richard Beymer films I loved.
Yeah, that's what I was going to talk about next.
Yeah, I love the Richard Beymer films because he did the behind the scenes thing with David Lynch previously in India, and so him doing the behind the scenes filming was interesting to me because it was very much from an actor's perspective. He was showing the behind the scenes process of the actors rather than what kind of film are they using? What kind of cameras are they using? What are the costumers doing? What are the makeup people doing? It's a very much from an actor's perspective. And it felt like everybody was very open and warm to the concept of his filming them.
Right.
Because they knew him, because he was Richard Beymer. He was there. He had been there for a while. And them showing the actors learning how to say and practicing saying their dialogue in reverse.
Yeah, because this is the filming of this stuff in the Red Room in the Black Lodge. I want that app. I want the phone app, whatever they're using.
What is it? I want it. I tried to look at it.
We need to look this up. So if anybody knows what app they were using to record the backward speech, I want to know that, because that was awesome. That apparently you can record your voice and then it'll play it back in backwards fashion. So you can memorize. So you can memorize the backwards version.
Right. They would say what they needed to say, and then they would play it back to them, and then they would say that phonetically.
Yeah.
Because I'd always heard that that's how they did that. That what they did is they filmed the actors saying it backwards.
Right. But they probably had to record it on audio tape or something back then.
Right. So they record the actors saying the dialogue backwards, and then they played the film backwards so it would play it forwards. I'd always heard that that's how they did it, but I'd never seen it. So to actually see it, to me, was fascinating. That was me hearing 26 years of a legend and finally seeing it in action. So that was amazing.
Yeah, and now, obviously, with the advances of technology, they can just pull up a phone app and just do it right there quickly. Which is,
and they have it written out, and then they hear it phonetically, and they practice it, and they say it was amazing to see how that worked.
Yeah, that was cool because we got to see that with Shirley and Ray Wise, and that was cool. That was cool. I like that a lot. You talked about the whole like Laura flailing and screaming and all that.
Right.
Let's see what else. In the second Bamer film, I had Bad Milk and Daradoon.
They were talking about getting that Richard Bamer did better with the food in India than he did in Mexico.
Yeah. So we got to see like Carol Strucken doing the backward speech, and
Carol Strucken,
and then Phoebe Augustine as American Girl. We got to see that sequence.
That was cool.
Yeah, that was
really cool.
And this is where you can see David Lynch pouring blood by Ray Monroe's head. By the way,
yes,
which is worth it. It's totally worth watching that. We get a lot of stuff. Like we get to see like Al Strobel and Kyle MacLachlan, going through the Black Lodge to go see Philip Jeffries. Which is just, if you're a Twin Peaks fan, this is just pure gold to watch this behind the scenes stuff.
I loved how everybody was so enchanted by the curtains. Even David Lynch is like, don't those curtains look beautiful? Like once the curtains are finally up and the floor is laid properly, everybody's just amazed by it. And even Kyle MacLachlan said that there's something about looking at that flooring that puts you in another place.
Yeah, he's talked about that. It has a different vibe. And filming in the Red Room, and I can obviously because I would think it seems so otherworldly, and it's perfect. So we get to see filming of Kyle as Dougie, which is kind of cool to see.
I love Kyle like being kind of like a turtle in the chair, and then like sitting up like when he comes into the suit.
Right.
That part of that was actually Kyle MacLachlan, and part of that was the computer generated effect. But I loved seeing back to the waiting room again for a second. I loved knowing that that's a real place.
Yeah.
It's not just a tiny corner of a room that's been digitally modified to be larger. That's a huge, gigantic studio made up to look like that, with hallways that people walk through, and that when you see footage of the floor just going by you, it literally is some dude just pulling the camera backwards.
Yep.
And getting footage of the flooring. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love it when I see that things, because so often these days you can't just take for granted that something's real.
Yeah.
And when something is actually real, it just seems even more magical than if it was computer generated.
Well, now it just seems like almost a cop out to do it in CGI. When you actually film it real, it seems like it has more gravitas, I think. It
just seems more magical because you actually have to use more human ingenuity to figure out a way to do it in the real world, rather than say, okay, we'll talk to one of the programmers and see what they can cook up for us.
Exactly. It's not the easy fix.
No, definitely
not. All right. Anything else about the Bamer films before we move on? Because I know we're running long.
No, I think the Bamer films were one of my favorite things on this.
Yeah, they are good. They are good. And again, if you're really into the Black Lodge stuff, this behind the scenes filming is it's gold.
It's amazing.
And then we have the big disc 8 with the double R exterior menu, where this is all the special features. And the big thing, of course, is the Impressions: A Journey Behind the Scenes of Twin Peaks documentaries, which totals about 4 hours 51 minutes.
It's 4 hours of behind-the-scenes footage. Yeah. It is enthralling.
Yes.
It doesn't sound like it would be, but it's enthralling. And there's really not much that we can say about it.
Right.
Other than my favorite part of this was when Laura comes on set, dressed up like she was in 1992, and everybody is floored.
Right.
Everybody's just blown away at how she looks like she looked. And I think that is, again, a testament to how magical, the collaborative art of filmmaking really is, where you have the costume people and the makeup people finding the same fabrics, materials, hair, and making her look just like she did in Fire Walk with Me. And everybody was just blown away by it. And if you
it can't be that. I mean, it can't be easy because it was 25 years ago. So, you're obviously your body goes through these changes, and like you're talking then a 20-something woman versus a 40-something woman now.
Right. And if you walk on set and the people who are making the movie believe that it's 1992 again, you're done. You did your job. It's perfect.
It is perfect. Totally agree. We did, again, this is a gold mine if you're into behind the scenes filming, because we get stuff like, where we had the filming of Laura meeting Cooper in the woods, like you talked about. We see Jerry in the woods.
Yes.
Which was great. Nido, we see like when Nido wakes up, filming inside the Palmer house.
Painting the stitches on Nido.
Yeah. Again, Lynch being very hands-on, and
very much so.
He gets we see him being like very particular about how he wants that pool of gold liquid, that gold oil. That's outside, presumably the White Lodge,
right?
The gateway to look, and we get stuff like David Patrick Kelly playing a ukulele, which was kind of funny to watch.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. And Lynch kind of coaching Sherilyn Fenn about how to approach Audrey and how she feels about Charlie. So that was good. And then we see Lynch instructing Kyle MacLachlan and Laura Dern about during that scene where Cooper and Diane enter the hotel room. Again,
that's got to be awkward as hell.
With that leads to, of course, to the world's worst sex scene ever.
The world's least sexy sex scene.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's not true. The least sexy sex scene I've ever seen is Requiem for a Dream.
I haven't seen that.
I'm not going to describe it. We're going to leave it at that.
Okay.
Don't watch it.
Okay. Fair warning.
I think I told you when I watched Requiem for a Dream, I mentioned it to Chris, and I mentioned something about Jennifer Connelly being naked in it. Mm-hmm. And he went, ooh. And I said, no. This does not make you happy.
Oh. It's like,
this is not a nude scene that you're going to enjoy, trust me.
That's funny. Well, I'll take your word for it. I haven't seen it, so I'll take your word for it.
Oh my God.
But now I have to look it up because you made me curious about it.
Oh, it's not good.
So let's see. We get some other stuff that we get on this disc. We get to see Matthew Lillard as Bill Hastings in his cell, confessing to Phyllis, his wife. Mr. C arm wrestling Renzo, which I thought was good. Sam and Tracy being murdered. That was a good bit of fun to watch.
Oh yeah.
And then Lynch, we see Lynch sketching out Philip Jeffries' Tin Machine.
Yeah, that was really cool.
And he's carving out like a spout out of foam. To show what he wants, which I thought was again, he's so hands-on.
It's so hands-on, and I still am wondering what exactly is the deal with that. Like, where did he come up with that idea? Where did that vision come from? What is it supposed to symbolize?
Well, probably a dream, knowing Lynch, but
yeah, that's true.
I'm sure he gets a lot of his ideas. Maybe he keeps like a dream journal and he writes this stuff down for later.
Yeah, maybe that's true.
You think he would? And then we see, I guess later on, we see him like dropping by the retro radio station with the woodsman, and I guess he's like marveling at like an old theater. this is where the fireman is.
Which was very bizarre to see that in color.
Yeah.
Because it's, of course, in episode 8, it's black and white.
Right,
and
right.
there are some photos in the still photo gallery, which I think were on disc 7, of the old theater and the firemen and Senorita Dido, Joy Nash, in color. And
it doesn't look right. It doesn't look right because you're so used to the black and white.
There's something about the black and white that makes it so much more striking, so much more contrast to them.
Well, I think probably because, if it's supposed to look like it's from like an old 30s movie theater,
right?
Then it makes sense. Then it makes sense to show it in black and white.
It does, and there's something about the black and white that is just so much
because it feels more period,
more striking. Yeah, more period and more striking. Because when you have the color, then there's so many more layers to the imagery. But when it's the black and white, it's just the black and white in the shapes.
And black and white is much more atmospheric.
Very much so.
It has that old Hollywood feel to it.
Right, and that old Hollywood feel is, at least for me, is very enchanting.
Yeah, because it was a much more glamorous period of filmmaking.
And it was more glamorous. It was, on the outside it was more glamorous.
There's a lot of like seedy Hollywood stories, but from that period, but
a lot of drug use and a lot of people's dogs getting killed so they'd cry. I mean, some really bad shit went down.
Yes,
but
yeah. You think Harvey Weinstein was bad, which he is.
Well, yeah, he could have fit in the 30s.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, he's definitely born too late. Because we still have to deal with him now.
Yeah, exactly. Like if he was born earlier, if he had been born earlier, he would be dead. So we wouldn't have to deal with him.
He is a vicious bastard, and I'm glad you're dead.
I'm glad you did. Yeah, exactly.
So, but just something about the design and the style is just so cool, so incredibly cool. I love 30s Hollywood.
Well, I love Art Deco design. So I love that whole look.
Chris was watching some of the behind the scenes stuff with me in the Black Lodge, and when they were setting it with the chairs and the lamp, he just looked at me and said, "How bad do you want those chairs?" I said, "I can't even describe it in words."
He knows you so well.
Those are like the ultimate pieces of furniture, those 2 chairs.
Like, I would gladly sacrifice you for those chairs now.
Yeah.
That's fine.
If the house is on fire and it's me or the chairs.
Tough luck. Sorry about your luck.
Sorry, honey. You have legs. You can try and make a run for it.
Yep. I'm saving the chairs. All right. Let's see what else. I guess he stops by the Twin Peaks Sheriff's Office, Lynch does, and he contemplates a hole in the floor where I guess there's like the fire jets are about to come up, and then he's talking to an assistant about, bring me a dozen eggs and some cream corn. Then he gets down on his knees by the hole, and then he starts smearing it with this goo.
God. Garmin Boziak out of the floor. You know what I thought was really interesting?
Yeah.
Was that, and I'm curious as to which came first, but the sawmill that was outside of Snoqualmie where they were filming is also gone.
Right.
So not only is the Packard sawmill shut down, but the sawmill that was outside of the one for real outside of Snoqualmie is also shut down.
Yeah, they talk about that the sheriff's office, the station, I guess, or the location, or I guess, used to be the sawmill. Right,
it was a building across from the sawmill.
Right.
And that's closed now. And I thought, I wonder which came first. Was it a coincidence, or was closing the Packard sawmill partially because this sawmill,
the actual Snoqualmie sawmill,
which I am assuming is the sawmill that's in the opening credits of the original series.
You would think.
but I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I don't know. But I thought that was interesting that in both the story and in real life that sawmill is no more.
Yeah, maybe there's some Peaks geeks out there that know this, but yeah. Let's see what else. More of like Audrey rehearsing, yelling at Charlie. It was kind of cool to see Sherilyn Fenn as Audrey. More of that. I'm sure you love that.
Loved it.
Loved it. There's a bit later in this segment called "A Bloody Finger in Your Mouth," where Lynch is working with Laura Dern, and he's guiding her exaggerated facial expressions. And he stands right next to her, like with like a handful of raw bread dough, molding it around her face.
So gross. He gets what he wants, but his methods are a little unorthodox.
Yeah. Again, this is the artiste here. But yeah, so I guess he's almost like he's shaping what he wants, which is weird.
Right.
And some other stuff, I guess. We get to see like, the whole rap party stuff where like Kyle finishes up his filming as Dougie, and then he finishes up as Mr. C, and so, which was kind of nice. And then they're thanking each other, him and Lynch, with everybody around, and so that was good.
Because it's interesting how Kyle MacLachlan, I mean, really the most well-known things, well, not the most well-known things he's known for, but his first movie was a David Lynch movie.
Right.
And then the first time he was, possibly the only time he was in an Oscar-nominated movie was a David Lynch movie. So a lot of his career is David Lynch-centric. So,
yeah. And then of course he got Golden Globe nomination for Twin Peaks.
As well he should have.
Yeah, should have won.
He should have won, but the Emmys are still possible. So,
well, the Emmy nominations were out, and he didn't get nominated.
He didn't get nominated?
No, he didn't get nominated.
I did not see that. Oh my God! Wait, he played 3 roles, people.
I know. You're You're preaching to the choir, but no, he didn't get nominated.
I pretty much only watch the Oscars these days.
Oh wait, no, I take that back. Well, maybe they haven't had the Emmys yet. I was thinking the Oscars. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
They just had the Oscar nominations. I'm sorry. I'm thinking they haven't had the Emmys yet. Yeah.
Yeah. But
because obviously the season's still going on, so yeah, they haven't had the Emmys yet.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. So rant over about the Emmys. So never mind.
Good.
All right.
We still have a shot.
Exactly.
Well, fingers crossed. The Golden Globes. The Golden Globes does sort of dictate what we're going to see at the Oscars or the Emmys. So.
And the problem with this is because Twin Peaks was last summer.
Mm-hmm.
That carries over into this season because apparently I think they do the cutoff at like the end of May or whatever.
I don't remember how.
I think it's like the end of May because that's when the actual TV season, for the networks ends.
Okay.
Is the May sweep, so.
I haven't watched the Emmys in decades, so.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll get some Emmy noms. Anything else about the special features disc?
No, just I wasn't sure about watching 4 hours of behind the scenes footage, but it was enthralling.
Yeah,
it was really enthralling. I was fascinated by it. I would watch it again.
Yeah,
it was very cool.
Yeah, it's just kind of so interesting that like. Obviously, I don't think we got that kind of behind the scenes footage with the original show, so it's kind of cool to see this now. And it's amazing that we get so much from this.
Mm-hmm.
Like they documented so much. They just documented the hell out of this.
Oh, they did, and it was really cool.
Yeah, it is.
You think watching the same scene being filmed over and over again would get boring after a while, but oddly it doesn't.
Yeah. So my rating for this whole thing, I gave it 10 out of 10 special features discs because that was pretty awesome.
That's pretty good. I gave it 10 out of 10 old yellow rotary phones.
Nice. Very cool. That apparently Big Ed's waiting by.
Yes, David, this is not a good number.
You're gonna give me a good number. Is there a number I need to get a hold of you? So yeah.
This is a good number to reach you? David, this is not a good number. But yeah, I definitely think this one is for sure worth buying.
Yeah.
For the extra features and specifically for the Richard Beymer films, which are my favorite part of this. And the behind the scenes stuff is really, really cool.
Unless you just really hated season 3, I don't know why you wouldn't buy this set.
Even the packaging is really cool. It is pointy.
It is pointy. Yeah, you have to be very careful because it's all jagged to match the chevron pattern in the black lodge.
It's the opening is jagged, so be careful you don't snap little corners off or anything like that. It is pointy.
You don't want to ruin your set either, so you don't want it to.
No, you don't.
So, but yeah, it's pretty cool because obviously you have Kyle's face, which is like Mr. C and Cooper, and then you open it up and Dougie's underneath. So,
and there's Dougie. And then Laura, the glowing golden Laura orb is on the back.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a beautiful set for sure.
It is. So yeah, just it's an amazing collection. So definitely worth it.
So is this only available on Blu-ray? I didn't even look.
No, I think it's DVD too.
Okay.
And you could obviously get it on digital if you want, but it's nice to have the discs.
It is nice to have the disc. Yeah. Now, I will say there is no booklet, so you're not missing anything out with that, but it is cool menus, cool packaging, things like that.
Yeah, apparently all the stuff that would have been in the booklet is all in the special features disc because it's
right, because there is a photo gallery on the disc that you can just arrow through.
Yeah. So yeah, it's an amazing release. All right, so what are we going to talk about next time?
What are we going to talk about next time?
Yeah, we talked about maybe either the autobiography of Special Agent Dale Cooper.
Let's do that.
You want to do that?
I do.
Okay, let's do that then. So
I think that's
because I dug out my copy.
Yeah, dust him off, baby. Oh yeah, that's. Let me see. Hang on,
this.
Let me see what I've got here. What do I have that I can dust off?
So yes, this will be.
Check this out.
Oh yeah, there's the audio.
The
nice.
Audio cassette.
Yep. I've got mine as well. So that's the tapes. That's that's separate. That's not the autobiography.
No, it's not like it's an audiobook. No, it's
yes. So we're gonna talk about the autobiography of FBI Special Agent Dale Cooper, My Life, My Tapes. And this is written by Scott Frost back in the day, back in 1990 presumably.
Mm-hmm.
As one of the official Twin Peaks tie-ins.
Yes.
And so if you enjoyed us when we went through the secret diary of Laura Palmer, well, now we're going to do Cooper's biography.
Now we're doing Cooper. Yes,
right.
This is 1990 book club again.
Exactly. So we'll be back in a couple weeks, and we will talk about that. So everybody, thanks for listening to us here on Ghostwood. And if you want to reach us on Ghostwood, why don't you reach us at ghostwoodpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think, what you thought of the season 3 set, or what you think of, if you've read the autobiography of Dale Cooper, what do you think about that as well? We'd love to get your thoughts on that. So you drop us a line there, or you can reach us on the Twitter machine at GhostwoodCast. Or you can reach us on Facebook at Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast. We definitely appreciate any likes and follows therein. We've gotten a number of them since then. So yeah. And also, yes, please subscribe to us on iTunes, on Apple Podcasts, where that helps people find us. And if you would like us, or give us rate us and review us, that also helps people find us because apparently it kind of jumpstarts Apple's algorithms so that hopefully people notice us more.
Right. When people look for Twin Peaks podcast, if you have subscribed and rated us, it will help people find us. Also,
yes,
we don't do this podcast by ourselves.
No, we don't.
We are part of a larger group of Central Ohio podcastians. Under the blanket of Southgate Media Group.
Yes.
And you know how every once in a while you'll be cleaning out your pockets to do the laundry, you'll find like $1 or something in there?
Yep.
and you're like, oh, what do I do with this? Well, you should join the Southgate Media Patreon page.
Yes, please do, because that helps keep this show afloat. Because helps Rob Southgate pay the bills.
All we do is talk, and then we send files to Rob and say, make this happen and turn it into podcast magic for us, please.
Yes.
So the Southgate Media Group Patreon group you can find on Patreon, and it's like every other Patreon where it's a donation a month, and at certain levels you get certain things, and even if it's just $1, that's $1 that goes towards keeping the bandwidth.
Exactly.
So if I am a Patreon subscriber to Southgate Media, because once you start looking around over there, like Charles does, what do you do, 40, 50 podcasts?
It certainly seems like it, doesn't it? I do 3 other podcasts for the Southgate Media Group.
Charles does a total of 4, and there are a lot of podcasts that Southgate Media produces. And
some might say 4 too many, but
well, I would only say 3 too many.
Oh, that's true. I would hope so. But then again, I wouldn't, because then there's Doctor Who, which, of course, you want to listen to that. And then you do comic book stuff, which, of course, pays my bills. Right.
So,
exactly.
Everybody, please go see Black Panther when it comes out. I really appreciate it. That'd be great.
Special plug. Ding.
Yes, exactly. Black Panther is coming out soon.
Coming out February 16th in theaters now.
Yes, February 16th in theaters. Go take your Valentine to see it, because Valentines love good action movies. But take a look on the Patreon page as to what Southgate Media has to offer. There are a lot of people geeking out on under Rob's watch. So
after you're done listening to Ghostwood, because obviously you want to listen to Ghostwood first.
Of course you do.
Yeah, and then maybe you can listen to like Next Stop Everywhere and Fandom Zone. And upcoming Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, just saying. Right. But after you're done with those, then check out those other Southgate Media Group podcasts, because there's lots of them, and
there's tons of
lots
them.
of good
and
stuff.
Like I said, we don't do all the work. Rob does all the work. I mean, we just Charles. I do nothing but talk. Charles records it for Rob, and then Rob does podcast land magic. So just consider $1 or $2. If you want to come in at the $5 level, that'd be awesome.
Yep.
Just to sort of keep things rocking, because we like to keep the podcast free, but podcasts aren't free to do.
Exactly.
So, you know what I'm going to say?
What are you going to say?
Save your money on the new Taco Bell nacho fries and send it to us, because they're not good.
You give them a thumbs down.
They're not. They're not that good.
You're not feeling the taco fries.
I'm not feeling the nacho fries, because what they do is you're eating the nacho fries and all you're thinking is, I really wish these were chips. So nacho fries, they're $1. Save yourself the mediocrity, and send us your $1.
Put it to a good cause.
I think you'll enjoy it more.
Put it to a good cause.
It'll at least last longer.
Exactly, because gosh knows our podcasts are very.
As long as we do, it's not enjoyable.
Exactly. So, do the nacho fries? Do they give you like 2 hours of satisfaction like we do? I don't think so.
No, they give you about 10 minutes of satisfaction, and if it lasts 2 hours, it is not satisfaction.
Yeah, it's probably more like heartburn or indigestion, but
it's either heartburn, indigestion, or cold fries. Nobody likes cold fries.
Nobody likes cold fries. All right, so
nope.
Xan, where can they reach you on the interwebs?
I am on the Twitter at Udinax19.
Yes.
Which is probably the best way to reach me right now, because I've been told by some people that my Facebook has like super duper privacy settings that I wasn't aware I set up. So I'm going to take a look at that. I am on the Facebook as Xan Sprouse, but it's apparently I have no photos. So people don't know who I am, but I am on the Twitter.
Yes.
Udinax19.
Check that out.
I'm checking that quite a bit.
Go follow her. She's awesome.
Follow me on the Twitter.
Yeah.
And you'll occasionally see some good humorous moments.
Yeah, please do. As for me, I'm also on the Twitter at Charles Skaggs, or at Charles Skaggs on the Instagram. Google Plus for all you crazy kids on the Google Plus. Facebook, of course, at Charles Skaggs. And my blog at Geeky Things.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot. Where I talk about all the stuff that we talk about here on Ghostwood, Twin Peaks, and whatnot. And all the other podcasts that I do for Southgate Media Group. Which, of course, is the Phantom Zone podcast. Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, and the upcoming Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, where we talk about the upcoming Titan series on DC's new digital service that's coming up soon. So
that's
please,
very interesting.
Yep, exactly. So as a longtime Titans fan, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. So if you're into comics and sci-fi, check out my blog. And thanks for everybody who's checked it out. And thanks for checking out my other three podcasts. Excuse me. I really appreciate it. And also thanks for checking out Southgate Media Group, because supporting them supports us. So we appreciate the reciprocity that we get back.
And I love Patreon because it's people supporting people
right
with the things they love.
Yeah.
It's not, you're not supporting us by like buying products you don't need. You're not supporting us by, watching a network you don't like. You're just supporting who you like. And, I have a few Patreon donations going every month, and I love it. I love that. I know that means the thing I like is, that I'm giving something to the thing I like directly to it. And I think that's awesome. I love Patreon awesome. For that.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it any better, which is why I have you.
I
don't have to say it. See how that works?
That's our corporate machine from Columbus, Ohio, in our own little way.
Exactly.
It's a direct way to show support for creative outlets.
Sounds good to me. All right. So next time, we're going to talk about the autobiography of FBI Special Agent Dale Cooper, My Life, My Tapes. So hurry up. So you may have to kind of dig a little bit for this one if you don't have a copy. Hopefully, I don't know if it's available in ebook or not, but maybe there's a PDF out there somewhere.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if this is still in print. And if it's not, hey kids, you saved your money. We'll review it for you.
Exactly. So thanks to everybody for listening to Ghostwood, and we will see you again in 2 weeks. Bye, everybody.
Bye.